match. And we are already well underway. Lots of counters on lots of things.
Yeah, so we are still in game one here. The score, that is correct up at the top. It is 0-0. You see Michael Eades and Shardless Bug has started his attrition matchup, but it looks like it has not stuck. We see a Tezzeret Agent of Bolas with 5 counters on it. You see a Cranial Plating that's been turned into a creature. You see an Ornithopter holding another Cranial Plating that currently is active for 6.
Shardless Bug likes to grind.
Shardless Bug likes to grind, but there are some difficult to answer threats from Affinity. You know, for example, Cranial Plating or Tezzeret Agent of Bolas, things that are not creatures that are also must answer cards.
Absolutely. And we see Michael Eades, Ancestral ticking down, gonna draw 3. Does have a couple of artifact creatures of his own in the form of Shardless Agent and Baleful Strix. It's the robot's mirror.
Someone is this. Does kind of look like a robot mirror right now, but the thing he's gonna have to deal with is this Tezzeret Agent of Bolas in play. Right now, Tezzeret is threatening a near lethal activation if he can -4 it. Remember, that will drain a player for twice the number of artifacts in play. There are currently 7 artifacts in play, so that is a drain of 14.
That is a lot.
It's a lot. It is not lethal though, as Michael Eades is at 15.
That is convenient.
But it looks like he doesn't have an answer for the Tezzeret right now, so 1 artifact off the top for Henry Romero will be good enough. Michael, you saw cascaded into Thoughtseize, declined to play it.
Wise.
And Henry's counting here.
A legendary. I believe that was another Mox Opal.
So he can't actually do it. He's going to go ahead and drain Michael for 14. That will not kill him, but it will leave him at 1. Henry goes up to 28.
Might as well turn off the Force of Wills and fetch lands.
Now he just has to find 1 more damage. He has, it looks like he's good on board. He has 3 attackers to 2 blockers.
There you go.
And that will be good enough. So game 1 goes to Henry Romero.
Memnite pokes.
Yeah, Memnite, the lethal attacker.
Yes, what a monster. Yeah, I think one of the things that really pushed Affinity is access to sort of those resilient threats that you were just talking about. This version is playing Tezzeret, but there were other versions that played Exed Champion, which was another very difficult to deal with threat. And then obviously Arcbound Ravager, you kind of have to kill twice.
Yeah, so usually there's Affinity has a bunch of low cards. Obviously the best cards in this deck are Arcbound Ravager and Cranial Plating.
Right.
But he does then, they usually have 1 large late game card, and yeah, he has opted for Tezzeret Agent of Bolas in that slot, as opposed to something like Master of Ethereum or
Champion, such effects. Actually, earlier we were talking about unique ways to get rid of Bridge from Belows in game 1s.
All right.
I brought up a few, and we threw it to Twitter, and one of the ones that we got from Twitter that we both liked a lot.
This is one of our favorite ones here.
Yes. Somebody, Tezzeret activation to turn their Aether Spellbomb into a creature, then sacrifice it to draw a card.
Yeah, so draw a card, get rid of your Bridge from Belows.
That's a good effect.
That was one of the more creative answers to that question.
That was a really good one. Another obvious one that I forgot to mention was Legend Ruling, your own creature, which actually now works even better. It used to be like you Vendilion and you have to kill both of your Vendilions. Now you can just play your second Vendilion, you get the effect, you get the Bridge is gone, and you get to keep a Vendilion. Pretty sweet.
Yeah, so moving to the sideboard, it's interesting to see, no one has Affinity on their mind, I think, in Legacy right now. It's fringe enough of a deck that people don't board removal specifically for it.
I would agree with that.
That said, they usually have some cards that are useful here. If you look at Michael Eades' deck, for example, he does have 2 Golgari Charms, which are actually very good cards against Affinity.
Certainly. Abrupt Decay is always going to be, a clean, efficient removal spell, taking out the important cards besides Tezzeret. He also has a Maelstrom Pulse in his sideboard, which can take out everything, including the Cranial Plating, and actually multiple copies if there's no sacrifice effect in play.
Yeah, so what we'll see him take out are cards like Hymned Turok and Force of Will, things. It's hard to be disruptive against a deck that dumps its entire hand on the table.
I agree. I actually like Force of Will against Affinity, and here's why. There are so few cards that actually matter from the Affinity deck. If you look, there's 4 Arcbound Ravager, 4 Cranial Plating, and 3 Tezzeret. Every other card is a 1/1, or, pretty weak, right? Something that you can trade for incidentally in a profitable exchange. But the cards that matter a ton, and I'm more than willing to 2-for-1 myself as the Shardless Bug player to keep them off of an early Arcbound Ravager plating or a later on Tezzeret.
Yeah. So of note, Henry Romero's deck, outside of the vault of the 8 artifact lands, is actually completely modern legal right now. Well,
Look at that.
Sorry, it's 2 Ancient Tombs. His mana base is a little cheating, but not hugely. He's not actually running the Disciple of the Vault in the deck.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, the Disciple version, the mana is stretched a little because you need black, and then a lot of those decks are a little light on sacrifice outlets. I know that a lot of them were playing like the City of Brass mana base so that they could also play a Tog with the Disciples, but your mana is a lot worse and you don't have as many artifact lands. You don't get to play Soul Ring lands. So, yeah, foregoing that option entirely and just using Tezzeret as the big win condition.
Yeah. So what does exactly an Affinity sideboard look like? And against a deck like Shardless Bug, you just want to be able to grind harder if you're an Affinity deck.
Yeah. Well, there are 2 etched champions, so you're upping your relevant spell count from 11 to 13. And etched champion is particularly good against the Shardless Bug deck, as it is a spot removal first deck. After that, there's some Whip Flares for other creature decks such as elves or goblins. Then it's more targeted hate. Tormod's Crypt for graveyard decks, Aethersworn Canoness, which are also conveniently artifacts, for Storm, and then 5 discard spells, splitting 3 Duress, 2 Thoughtseize. I wouldn't be too surprised to see Thoughtseize, but I think that keeping your synergistic shell intact is more important. I think we're probably just going to see the 2 etched champions for 2 of the smaller, less relevant creatures.
So we are just about underway for Game 2. Michael Eades was the number 2 seed, so he was on the play Game 1, was not able to take down Affinity, but he will get to be on the play again Game 2.
Not often you see a Shardless Bug Game 1 go 40 minutes and lose. Those are usually the games they win.
True. All right, season leadoff on Deathrite Shaman. Now the question is, how many cards will Henry be able to play on turn 1?
Let's roll
Could
the
be
dice.
anywhere from 1 to 8.
Yeah, and this is definitely the deck where you have to sculpt your turn 1 because there are a lot of options over the course of the first 2 turns. Looks like it's just going to be Vault into Vault.
Vault of Whispers into Vault Scourge.
Vault Scourge, yes. So Vault into Vault, yeah.
We go to 18. Third card is hits in Ornithopter, and it's just 3, so ship the turn back to Michael.
All right. Deathrite Shaman not making mana yet. No fetch lands for Michael.
And it looks like the hymns were kept in from Michael, and because Henry had a little bit of a slower start here, him is going to get full value.
Yeah, I actually don't mind him on the play, and especially if Henry's going to play out his Ornithopter on 1, which you don't necessarily need to do, it makes him a lot better because now the density of
it's not going to hit Ornithopter.
Right, exactly. The density of the higher impact cards of Henry's hand is a lot higher.
All right, so he's right now randomly determining the cards. Yeah, Ornithopter's often played out on turn 1 when you have a Signal Pest as your 1-drop.
Right.
So you can actually deal damage.
But
otherwise, there's not a huge reason, unless you're playing something like Master of Ethereum, which Henry's not playing on the following turn. So it looks like a Glimmer Void and that Signal Pest will be taken.
All right. Not the best hits, but a 2-for-1 is a 2-for-1.
Well, Henry didn't keep... He looks like he kept a hand without one of those signature cards. Sometimes what Affinity can do is it can just keep what I'd call a swarm hand, where you keep a bunch of the little flyers and Signal Pests.
Yeah, and it's really hard for a spot removal deck to deal with that. You're at a huge tempo disadvantage on every exchange, and not to mention that you're spending removal on something that is cheap and doesn't hit very hard.
Yeah, so Henry's going to cast the rest of his hand. That's going to be a second Vault of Whispers, a Mox Opal, a Signal Pest, and an Aethersworn Canoness.
Aethersworn Canoness is an interesting one because it actually stops... is Aethersworn Canoness non-artifact?
Yeah, it is not
All
an
right, so it
artifact.
doesn't actually stop the Cascade. I actually thought it might stop the Cascade from a Shardless Agent for a second there. So that does not work.
Canist, each player's casting non-artifact spell this turn cannot cast additional non-artifact spells.
Rats.
So originally, you'd say, hey, this stops the Cascade, but because Shardless Agent in the bug deck is an artifact, he can actually cast both the Agent and the spell it cascades into under an Aethersworn Canonist.
Yep. So Aethersworn Canonist, I guess just a Grizzly Bear with a little upside. And now it's on Michael Eades. He has 3 mana available to him. That Deathrite Shaman's still just chilling.
Yeah, he can actually take some time here. Henry's attack in the air is only good for 3 damage a turn. It'll be a life point swing of 5 thanks to Signal to Vault Scourge gaining 2 life. But Michael is somewhat... He's not under that much pressure at the moment.
Yeah. And it only takes 1 removal spell to turn that 3 into 1.
Yeah, so 3 damage will knock Eades down to 16. Henry will get to go up to 21. There's always the danger that Henry draws something like Cranial Plating, and then suddenly these attacks become massive.
Yes, of course. There's always that threat looming at the top of the deck. And Abrupt Decay, not a bad draw from Michael Eades.
Yeah, if you're Michael, the question, we'll see how slow he plays the Abrupt Decay. He's going to immediately target Aethersworn Canonist with it.
Interesting, interesting. He does have a fetch land.
Yeah, I'm wondering if he's... Looks like he's going to go for Canonist into Shardless Agent here.
All right.
I'm not sure. I think why to play the Abrupt Decay immediately. I think what that does mean is that if he cascades into something, he can just be sure to cast it. Like, say he casts... Well, he can cast it and then also cast the Abrupt Decay that turn. He doesn't want to have to choose between the two.
Yeah, he certainly could have decayed on Henry's turn, but then if he, say, hits Ancestral or Brainstorm off of the Shardless Agent into a Force of Will, he can't cast Decay and the Force of Will.
Exactly. So Shardless Agent will be cast. It's going to cascade into...
Past the Maelstrom Pulse. Going to hit a Deathrite Shaman there.
Yep, not ideal, but not terrible. Right now, Michael actually can conceivably race here. I'm not sure. I feel like that Abrupt Decay was used a little aggressively. If I'm Michael, I'm worried about Henry top decking something like Cranial Plating that he just can't answer.
Yeah, Plating or Ravager, those are the scary ones. But it looks like he's gonna go.
Right now with another 5-point life swing. Romero's gonna make the same attack he did last turn, and he will follow it up with a Memnite.
The big finish.
Yep.
Drum roll, please. Yeah, I mean, Tarmogoyf gets so big because of artifacts in the yard that aren't usually there.
Yeah, as soon as a creature dies, both artifact and creature are in the graveyard.
Yeah.
Tarmogoyf gets big quickly.
Yes, it scales quite quickly in this matchup, which means that Michael is actually going to go for the race here, and it makes sense. I mean, his board presence is a lot better than Henry's as it stands, which would make sense with the Abrupt Decay play, and cascading into another Tarmogoyf doesn't hurt that at all.
Yeah, he's going to cast another Shardless Agent into another Tarmogoyf. Michael, now with a huge amount of power on the battlefield and with those Deathrite Shamans, will be able to just possibly push damage faster than Henry can dish it out.
Yeah, it looks like Michael Eades doing the beatdown this round.
All right, so a swing from Tarmogoyf and Shardless Agent is a swing for 7. That will put Romero down to 11, what puts Michael in the lead on the race. On end step, he has the potential to drain for 4 if he wants to get both Abrupt Decay and him to Turok. The danger with that play is that they will be shrinking his Tarmogoyfs, depending on what they take.
Right, not ideal. Much more likely he's going to gain 2 life and that's it.
Yep, just 2 life right now. That's the only card he can get rid of without shrinking his Tarmogoyfs.
Yep.
That and one of the lands.
It's not often that, that the dyssynergy between Deathrite and Tarmogoyf comes up in Legacy, but here we see it, in the form of the Deathrite's not being able to use its drain ability. And now we are on Henry's main phase, thinking about his card drawn for the turn, how he wants to attack.
Yeah, and so he's just going to swing the Signal Pest and Vault Scourge. He's leaving back as many blockers as possible. He wants to make sure he swings the Vault Scourge so that he can gain life. Yeah. But his draw there was Seat of the Synod, so just another land. No help at the moment.
Yep, Ornithopter likely going to jump under the bus here.
Yeah, remember that it doesn't take much for Henry to win from here. If he draws something like Arcbound Ravager, he can sack his entire board to Ravager, sack his Ravager to throw everything on Vault Scourge, and suddenly win this race.
Yeah, make a giant Baneslayer Scourge.
Yeah, just make a giant Lifelinker and hope it's enough.
Yep.
And Michael is at 9. That actually, if he makes that play next turn, it will be a swing for 9.
That's convenient.
Yeah. Well, Michael will try to get a little bit of a buffer. He fetched there so that he could use a Deathrite Shaman to eat the Aethersworn Canonist.
Yep, gain 2. And that's probably all. Likely not going to activate the other one for fear of shrinking his Tarmogoyfs, as we said earlier. And sure enough, he untaps and draws for the turn. Miracle style.
Yeah. All right. And so moving to attacks, we will see here what he swings.
Team.
Yeah, and it's going to be everything. He's not particularly worried about the counterattack. This is an attack for 14 unblocked, so it is a lethal attack. Some of his creatures will have to chump. From Henry's side, it's both creatures.
Yep, gonna try and preserve his life total a little, give himself a little more time to draw out of it. I would be pretty shocked if that Ancestral got to come off of suspend.
He has to double block there, because if he doesn't, Michael could immediately exile both Hinder Turok and Abrupt Decay for the remaining 4 points.
Aha.
And the top deck finally is hit of Cranial Plating for Romero, but will it be enough?
Well, his artifact count is now at 7, so this is an 8-point life linking swing.
Yeah, so a life swing of 16.
Which will put him to 15 with 1 blocker. This is actually
this could be
a 1 race.
Yeah, this could be a race in Henry's favor. She's going to go ahead and swing the Vault Scourge. Cranial Plating, probably the best card in the Affinity deck.
I would say, by a fair margin.
Yeah, if they would play 9 of these if they could, maybe even more.
It makes all of your terrible little dorks into huge, massive threats.
So right now, that Cranial Plating, with a count of 7, is turning the 1/1 Lifelink Vault Scourge into a 8/1 Lifelink Vault Scourge.
You can actually move the plating over to the Signal Pest and use it to trade with a Tarmogoyf.
Yeah, so that'll put Henry up to 17, Michael down to 3. Will Michael be able to put together a lethal swing here is the question. He does not have the cards in play to do it just now. And he does not have any removal spells. So he's going to try to gain life. It looks like he's exiling 2 of Henry's creatures. That will put Michael up to 7.
Yep.
He's just trying to buy himself enough time. With these life triggers, he can actually bring himself to 9, so he can buy himself another turn, which may be enough.
Yeah. Plating not being moved to trade with Tarmogoyf. On one hand, Tarmogoyf is likely going to get another attack, but on the other hand, it's 1 less creature in the graveyard for Michael Eades to gain 2 life from.
Yeah, so Henry possibly just wanting to draw the chump, hoping to draw another chump blocker here.
Yep, rather than trade and give Michael another full turn off of the life.
So 1 card in hand for Michael Eades. We are not sure what it is. We'll find out here. And the draw for Henry is a Tezzeret, Agent of Bolas.
Another pretty heavy hitter.
It's good here. It's a little late. We'll see what kind of value he can get out of it.
You can pay 2 life with Ancient Tomb to make a 5/5 blocker.
Yeah, he's actually tapping all his... He's not on that line. He's tapping his lands here to stop that from happening.
All right.
All right, Tezzeret.
Just going to try and draw a card.
He's going to make Vault Scourge a 5/5, and that actually is a lethal swing. So Vault Scourge is the 5/5 lifelinker. Thanks to Cranial Plating, it moves up to 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's a swing of 11. That's just enough that Michael cannot...
Exactsies.
Yeah, Michael could have removed 2 creatures to move himself up to 11, but the Vault Scourge attack there makes it a lethal attack. So
I did not even see that, Henry.
So Henry Romero...
Doing the math. Look at that. And
yeah.
Affinity.
Yeah, Affinity going to
unexpected
deck
choice.
is going to move on to the top 4, where he's going to face off against Jacob Wilson and Rug Delver.
Very nice.